What up? What up? What up? What up? I think this is working. What's good, Unlimited? Look at you on time today. I think this is working. I think this is working. What's up, everybody? What's up to welcome to Hawks Hoops Live. If your weekly NBA live show, my name's Hawk. I'm your host. This show happens every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Normally, did Twitter not work? Let me see. Did the Twitter one not work? Premium account. Oh, you need a premium to go live on Twitter? Yikes. We won't be doing that anytime soon. Let me make sure the Facebook one is working fine. Let me just see. I just want to see one thing. And then it should be good. Yeah, it is. All right, bet. Dang, it feels good to be back. Once again, welcome to Hawks Hoops live every Wednesday, 8 p.m. I'm your not local, but I'm your one-stop shop for all NBA news. We got a lot on the docket today to get through. We're going to talk about some preseason, not a ton of preseason stuff. I have been enjoying preseason, but I'll even admit myself, preseason just started this past Friday. I haven't been, and then my league pass not working. And I haven't been as locked in as I normally would be when it comes to preseason. I'll get there. Trust me, I'll get there. I'm just not there currently at the moment. Give me half a second. I'm trying to activate my league pass on my phone so I can turn on the Knicks game. Activate. But today on the docket, we have the main thing with the docket. We're doing a Western Conference tier list. I'll explain more of that when we get there. We'll talk a little bit about preseason, and then the GM survey came out. I thought it came out earlier in the offseason. Maybe that was the owner survey, annual survey where all the GMs get asked who's the best player at certain positions, who'd you start a franchise with, best defender, like just general NBA questions. But you're asking and you're anonymously surveying the people who are in charge of making the decisions in the NBA and on these teams. So we'll see. We're going to go on blind. It's going to be a blind reaction. I've already seen a couple of things, unfortunately, but I haven't seen the whole thing. And I've already seen some things that it's like, what were we thinking here when we did this? Unlimited, was go with you. Thanks for pulling up, my guy. We here. And hopefully, let me know if things change this chat, but we should be good. We struggled with a lot of lag last week. And I think a lot of that just because my computer's a little old. I don't even think it was necessarily my internet. But OBS was really, really taxing on my computer last week, and it was real choppy. So I didn't even make as many clips as I wanted to. There was some stuff I wanted to clip out and post, but the visual of it was so choppy that I just was like, we're not even going to bother. We're not even going to bother. For some reason, you saying we did it right now reminded me of Kamala Harris when she said we did it, Joe. I doubt that's what you were going for, but activate authentication code. Give me half a second. I'm just trying, like I said, I'm trying to EYLTH3. I was trying to activate my league pass. All right. So first thing we want to talk about. Well, let's get right into this. I'm gonna save the preseason thoughts, and I'm going to save the GM survey for after the tier list. Honestly, I'm just going to hop right into the tier list. Life has been good. Oh, dang, Unlimited. I'm trying to remember. I don't think you pulled up. I don't think you were able to pull up last week. I don't remember seeing you last week, but I've been good. I'm happy to be back streaming. You can expect the streams. Shoot, you can even join the Discord. Links is in the bio if you really want to be a part of the conversation. Discord been dry lately. I'm gonna try to get it back. Every couple of days, hop in there and prompt y'all with either what I've been thinking about the NBA, or maybe ask y'all a question or two. Like a couple weeks ago, I just randomly asked, is the point guard position the deepest position in the league? Because it really feels like the point guard position right now is the deepest position in the league. And then we were talking about the weakest position, and I think it's the shooting guard spot in terms of superstars. Not weak as in terms of those players don't matter, because there's a lot of really good role players as the two guards in the NBA right now. But in terms of the players who quote unquote not matter, but the players who are superstars and MVP caliber players, it ain't many at the two. No, that's not a two guard spot. I'm thinking of the small forward, because the two guard spot's got like Anthony Edwards, Booker, Donovan. Maybe I was thinking of the small forward, because so many historical small forwards have now shifted to the power forward position. Kawhi, LeBron, KD. Yeah, a lot of them have switched over. Hey, the Discord ain't been active. The Discord ain't been active at all. But that's more so on me than it is on y'all. I'm gonna try to do better with that. Been busy with school. Hope school's been well, man. I hope school's been going well. Some days I miss school. When when I had a day like I had today, some days I miss school. All right, so we got the tier list here. If you didn't pull up last week or didn't get a chance to see last week's tier list or aren't familiar with my tier list, I don't always do, one, two, three, four, five, six. Like I'm not necessarily ranking these teams in the order that I think they're going to finish in the standings. My rankings are more off vibes. Vibes is the wrong word. It's more so how I feel about this team going into the season. Yes, I still have some, conference favorites, people who I think can go all the way. But then there's some categories in here where I'm like, this is a very unique situation that maybe these couple of teams are in that don't fit another category. And we'll get to that when we get there. All right. So first things first, how do I... Let me share my screen. No, no. Share screen. Share. That's okay, StreamYard. We're doing it on StreamYard this week because last week, like we said, the stream was so bad last week. And I think is it F11? Is it F12? No. No. It's not F12. What's full screen on a Mac? I used to know it. I want to say it was F11. Definitely not F11. All right. Anyway. File view. Dang, there we go. Didn't do what I wanted to do. Okay. All right. So here are the tiers that we have. Conference favorite, right there, just not my favorite. Talent is there, just have to see it. Really good team. Boom or bust. We'll get to that in a second. Those are teams that I think could be really good. The talent is there. But also, due to the rest of the talent on that team, they could be bad. Talented young team that will compete. These are teams who are young, are good, and could make a couple of teams that are quote unquote really good teams or the one of the boom or bust teams mad because they can knock them out the playoffs. And then lastly, figuring out the rebuild. All right, so first team in here, conference favorite, Western Conference favorite. For me, the West, when I made this list, honestly, was tougher than the East was. I think a lot of teams are more competitive in the West than they are in the East. It's not necessarily a knock on the Eastern Conference, in my opinion. That's just the way I see how it's shaped out for me. I think the Western Conference is going to be more competitive than the East. I think it's been that way for the last couple of years. Growing up, it was that way. It felt like for a little bit there, it was getting back to maybe a little bit more balance. But once again, I do feel like the West is a lot more competitive than the Eastern Conference. Unlimited says Rockets are a big sleeper team next year. There's at least one unexpected team to pop up. Coaching is great. Supporting cast is great, but they need to figure out who they want to prioritize. I got a decent amount of thoughts on the Rockets. Spoiler alert, there's one of the teams on the talented young team that will compete. Those Rockets are a perfect example of the type of team I'm talking about when we get there. Read my mind unlimited. So first team, conference favorite. Let me pull up my notes. I'm trying to have everything. Click here for layouts, manage settings. Okay. All right. Conference favorites. First team I have here. I went back and forth, like I said, with the Western Conference for a while. There were a couple of teams, and I want this also to disclaimer. This is my list. This is not a definitive list. This is just my list. If you have people in a different spot, that's cool with me. But first up, I got the Oklahoma City Thunder as the conference favorite to win the Western Conference going into the next season. I think SGA is going to continue to be great. They were the number one, if I'm not mistaken, they were the number one seed last year. I should have had that pulled up. I did when I was making these notes, but I also made these notes on Sunday. So my memory could be a little foggy on who was the number one seed last season. Let me just pull this up so I have it, just to be sure. Yeah, number one seed in the West last year. It was only by a game over the Nuggets. It was by a half a game over the Nuggets because they had the tiebreaker. They actually had the same exact record. But I think the Thunder, to me, are my title favorite going into next season. SGA, I think, is going to continue to be great. I think he has the potential to have an MVP caliber season. He was in those conversations this year. I think he'll continue to be in those conversations next year. he's one of those point guards who's super explosive on the offensive side of the ball. He's a great scorer. He can get to his spots, but he's also a solid defender. And I think just as a whole, the roster that the Thunder have is a really, really good roster. It's to me, one of the deepest teams in the league now, especially with their additions of Isaiah Hartenstein and Alex Caruso. Swapping out basically Giddey for Caruso was huge in my opinion. The defense that Caruso brings, the three-point shooting that Caruso brings. Hartenstein, quiet as kept. I honestly don't think it's quiet. I was very surprised by his playmaking in his first game, in his first preseason game. I want to say he had to end up with 6 assists. Just a lot of really good passes. He had a dribble handoff situation with Chet Holmgren, which surprised me. And Chet went to the basket for a bucket. I think Isaiah Hartenstein could do a lot of high-low action with Chet. He was a good passer out of the high post. His passing really did surprise me. And Isaiah Hartenstein, in my opinion, could start for a decent amount of teams in the league. So the fact that you have a guy like him being able to come off your bench and also being able to, I think he should come off your bench. I'll say it like that, to have him as a backup big. But you can run a lot of him at the 4 or him at the 5 and Chet at the 4 because Chet has the ability to space the ball a little bit better, which I think will help when you're facing a team like the Nuggets and potentially in the playoffs or in the regular season, because we saw the Minnesota Timberwolves have so much success doing that with the 2 big lineup going against the Nuggets. Limited ask, are you considering doing power rankings in totality? If so, I'd be curious where you have Philly, because people either have them at 5 or 10. That's an excellent. Maybe next week we'll do a power ranking as a whole, even if it's something quick to just run through. If I already have my notes for it, it might be easy and quick to go through. It kind of depends on what happens in the NBA world between this week and next week. It wasn't on my mind, I'll be honest, but I'm not against it. Personally, I think you'll see another leap, not necessarily even leap, but continued success from Jalen Williams. I mean, yeah, J-Dub. Chet Holmgren continue to see a great sophomore season from him. A great sophomore season from him. He's been in the league for 3 years, but last year was his rookie year because he got injured in his first year. It threw me off for a second. I like this team a lot, though. I think having them as a title favorite is asking a lot from a young team. They are a younger team, but they're a team that plays with poise. They're a team that doesn't, so far at least, what they showed last year in the playoffs. Those games against Dallas were close, and they got knocked out in the playoffs by the team that went to the NBA Finals. And a lot of those games were very close. They didn't necessarily seem like a young team that was going to get rattled, but now that they've had some playoff experience, now they've realized, I think, how good they are and realized that their ownership and their leadership is willing to make some moves to try to make a really good team with the Isaiah Hartenstein signing and the Alex Caruso trade. I like the Thunder odds to make it out the Western Conference. That being said, continuing on down the list, right there, just not my favorite. So this tier is a tier of teams who I think have the talent. They could make it out of the they can make it out of the West. I think if you don't have the Thunder the talent as the favorite, you probably have this team that I have in this tier as the favorite. And even though they lost what I think is a crucial player, I still think the Nuggets are right there. They're just not my favorite. When you have someone who, I go back and forth on this because y'all know I'm a Joel Embiid fan, but when you have someone who can be argued as the best player in the league, at worst the second best player in the league, and it's very close. Most people say the best player in the league. I ain't tripping. Best player in the league. When you got the best player in the league and you got a roster around him that's really talented, Jamal Murray really struggled in the playoffs this past year. I don't really have an explanation for that. My hope, I guess I'll say, is two things. One, the Timberwolves have really like some of the best perimeter defenders in the league. And especially like scheme wise, what they're able to do with that versatility and switching, some of the best perimeter defenders in the league. I'm hoping he's able to learn from that. And the reason I feel like I can trust him, because we've seen Jamal Murray be good. I think missing KCP is going to be big. The silver lining is you either hope Michael Porter Jr. steps up a little bit defensively, because we know he can shoot the ball well and he's going to be a big part of their offense and in terms of being like a movement shooter and a guy who can space the floor. But you're also going to be asking a lot from Christian Braun and hoping he steps up a little bit more. and filling that role, probably sliding into that starting two guard spot. Now that you don't have KCP, who was their point of attack defender, you're going to be asking a lot from Christian Braun. I think he can do it. I've seen moments of him doing it. It's just we got to see it for a full season. And even if they have to make some tweaks and figure that out, I trust in their coaching, and I trust in Jokic. Those are two really big pieces to me, and that's why I have them as right there. They're just not the favorite for me. Oh, well, this is in regards to the Thunder. Best offseason for me. Knicks probably got more talented, but OKC fixed all of their flaws while not trading a single first round pick, which still is crazy to me and honestly shows you what type of organization the Bulls are running. Yeah, exceptional stuff from the organization. I 100% agree with you, Unlimited. 100% agree. Next up on the list. Dang, this is really what I have here. Y'all might call me a hater for this. So the Nuggets are the only team I had for right there, just not the favorite. Conference favorite, I'm a believer that if you're a conference favorite, there only could be one conference favorite. Like it's not a tier, it's one. Right there, just not my favorite. There could be a couple there, but to me, it's just the Nuggets. The next, this talent is there. I just have to see it, and I'll explain why. And yes, Unlimited, it's Dallas and Minnesota. We'll talk about Dallas first because they went to the finals, and you're like, how's the team that just went to the NBA finals and had the best player in the playoffs in Luka Doncic, not your conference favorites? Who's guarding Luka in a 7-game series versus Denver? While true, I see that logic, but my pushback is who's guarding Luka in a 7-game series on almost any team, if we're being honest, but it's a team sport. And we saw the Dallas Mavericks, and specifically in the finals, we saw what it could be like if their teammates aren't hitting shots. Like, that's honestly why I love basketball so much, that it really is a team game. Luka was the best player in the playoffs. And when it came to his finals, he was still creating those same open looks for Jerry Jones Jr., for PJ Washington, even for Kyrie. And no one could knock down an open shot. No one could generate any offense outside of Luka Doncic for the most part, at least from the perimeter. But talking about the Mavericks, I think adding Clay is going to be huge for them. Speaking of their lack of shooting in the playoffs, adding Clay is going to be huge for them. Clay, if you didn't know, put up three-point attempts a game last season, which is the third highest three-point attempts a game out of at least like the official leaders who qualify. 39% from three last year, basically 40%. The only guys who shot more threes than him are Steph Curry and Luka Doncic, and he's joining Luka. And Clay was in top 5 in makes per game. Klay Thompson, although he hasn't been, I think, what we remember him as these last year and a half, the last 2 seasons, he's still one of the best shooters in the league. Like, as a whole, he's still one of the best shooters in the league. There might be a game where you're like, Clay was 2 for 11. Like, sure. Sometimes that just comes with the territory of, for some reason, being Klay Thompson. Maybe not 2 for 11. It's not crazy. 2 for 7, we'll say. I've seen that game from him before last year. But the spacing that he brings is going to be huge. I'm curious to see what the defensive side of the ball looks like for him, because if he's going to be on that floor with Kyrie, with Luka, he's going to be asked to play some defense. Like, that's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's going to be asked to play some defense. We'll see if he can, but he's going to be asked to do it. And then my other thing, the other thought I have for them is the rest of the team has to continue. Just do what you did last year. Like, once they made that Daniel Gafford trade in the middle of the season at around the trade deadline, and they started going crazy post-February, like post-All-Star game, the Dallas Mavericks looked like a completely different team than they did pre-All-Star game. Their defense was a whole lot better, which is also why I have a sprinkle of concern of adding the Klay Thompson signing. Does that defense stay as good with Klay on the floor? Like, these are just the types of things I'm thinking about. I say all that, but I still think they can get out of the Western Conference. I just need to see it again. Like, it's no hate to Dallas. It's no hate to Luka. I just want to see it again. Daniel, what's good with you, my guy? Thunder all the way. I ain't mad at that. You can't be mad at that. I ain't mad at that at all. Next on this list, like I said, talent is here. Just have to see it. We're going to throw in the the Minnesota Timberwolves, which is where, there you are. Minnesota Timberwolves. We talked about it last week a little bit about the Julius Randle fit, losing Karl Anthony Towns, how much that impacts their driving lanes, how much spacing Karl Anthony Towns was giving to this team to create driving lanes, straight cutting lanes. It's not going to be there as much. Julius Randle will shoot the ball. He's nowhere near the shooter that Karl Anthony Towns was, but to me, he's respectable. The defense will have to know where he is. They might leave. They're not going to kill themselves on to get there, and there's a chance that he's going to miss a decent amount of threes. Like he's not the shooter that Karl Anthony Towns was, but he can drive the ball well. He's as good as a driver off the dribble for a big as Karl Anthony Towns was. As good of a driver, in my opinion. I'm curious to see how good the defense looks with Karl Anthony Towns not being there and sliding in Julius Randle. Towns was just a big body who could not, terrible on the boards. I'm not saying Randle is terrible on the boards. He's like a solid 20 and 10 guy. But I'm curious to see like vertically what is the defense going to be like? How well can he move his feet on the perimeter? In theory, it should be better because there were at times when that was a concern of mine with Karl Anthony Towns on the defense, playing defense against smaller power forwards, with quicker footed power forwards. Julius Randle should be able to cover some of that, but then also you still got Jaden McDaniels on the team. Like you got Rudy behind you. They can figure it out defensively. My biggest thing for Julius Randle, I want him to just slide, get in where he fit in early. Like, don't force the issue. I think it might look clunky at times because they're going to try to run sets for him to get him going. It could look clunky at times. But it could work. It could work. It's going to ask a lot from Anthony Edwards. I think he's going to need to be better than he was last year simply because of the lack of space, some of the lack of spacing. It's not the trade I thought they would have made. I know there was talks of trading away Karl Anthony Towns going into the season. During the regular season last year, there were those talks. And then once they got to the Western Conference Finals, once again, I'm still surprised they did it because I didn't think they would break up and blow up the team. Not blow up, but trade away a significant piece of the team that just got them to the Western Conference Finals. The best season of their career. I mean, best season of their franchise, in my opinion. But they did. And I think they still have the talent. We just have to see it. Big on the Grizzlies. Okay. Let me say, I think the floor of the Grizzlies is pretty high, but I doubt this team gets past the second round. If they make it there, still got to play one of those four teams above, most likely. We'll talk about the Grizzlies. I like the Grizzlies a lot. We'll get there. Two other things about the Timberwolves. The addition of Joe Ingles and Dante DiVincenzo, I like. So Dante was one of the best shooters last season. Like 8 attempts a game, 41%. One of the best shooters last season. That's going to be big for them. Where he fits in on the lineup will be interesting, considering you still got Anthony Edwards to play. You're still going to want to play Jaden McDaniels. You're still going to play Nickeil Alexander-Walker. You're still going to want to play Mike Conley. Where does Dante DiVincenzo fit in the rotation? That's for the coach to figure out. But he definitely has a weapon that needs to be on the floor because of how well he can space the floor. Maybe you run some Anthony Edwards is really doing a lot of primary ball handler stuff, and Dante's on the floor with him for that additional spacing. We'll see. And Joe Ingles is getting older. He's not as impactful, in my opinion, as he was in his Utah days like 3-4 years ago when Utah knocked out the Paul George, Russell Westbrook, OKC Thunder, that many years ago. But he's still a good shooter. He's still a solid vet. I think he'd be solid for them off the bench. I do like that pickup. I wanted to point that out. Next tier, we got really good teams. Just the team's good. I don't know if they're title contenders. I wouldn't call them title contenders. I think they're really good. Is there a world where the chips can fall and they get there? Some of these teams, probably. Not all. But some of these teams in this tier, probably, but I don't believe in it. And the first one, ironically, is the team that maybe could get there, but I don't believe in it. The Phoenix Suns. Really good team. Really, really good team. Adding Tyus Jones at point guard was great for them. I think this is a team that desperately needed a point guard, desperately needed some ball movement, some player movement, and we're seeing that. I haven't watched a full game of the Phoenix Suns yet in preseason, but I've watched a decent amount of their I watched one of their 10-minute condensed games, and it's a lot of ball movement. Like even when it was second half bench unit on there, guys who might not even be playing that much, the player movement was there, the ball movement was there. I'm excited to see that with their stars, because as you get Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal committed to moving off the ball, coming off of screens, it makes it a whole lot harder when those are the guys catching the ball in advantageous positions. But the flip side of Tyus Jones being added to this team and running point guard is the team is still kind of small because now it's Bradley Beal at the 3. Like, that's the projected lineup from ESPN. It's Tyus Jones, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, and then dang, why can't I not remember dude name that just got traded from the Blazers for Ayton? Y'all know who I'm talking about. Can't think of his name right now. Booker's Olympic experience, I think, will help with some of the ball movement, player movement stuff. Like, Booker's still gonna have to be Booker for this team, but thank you, Yusuf Nurkic Unlimited. His name was gone. So you just said Nurk, my brain went Yusuf, but I was stuck. Booker's still gonna have to be Book. In my opinion, this is still Book's team. Don't get me wrong there. But I think the role that Devin Booker took on with playing defense, being a connecting piece, being a guy that's willing to make the extra pass and see that extra pass, I think will help the rest of the team, because there will be times when he sprinkles in some of that. Now, a lot of this team and how this is going to work, it's going to be Booker being Booker, Booker doing Booker for sure. But I think he's going to have that experience he learned, and doing that with the Olympics can bleed in to this Phoenix Suns team a little bit more. And shout out to Mike Budenholzer for being the new Suns coach. We talked about the off-ball movement. We talked about the ball movement. I liked what I saw from them. Shout out to Budenholzer. I wish him the best of luck in Phoenix. Next team I got here are the Los Angeles Clippers. A really good team. Really good team. I think, dang, now that I'm really thinking about it, I could see the Clippers being a tier below in the boom or bust category. Do I want to do that? I'm going to do the other teams in really good, because as I was about to say what I was going to say, I'm re-looking at my notes from a couple days ago, and I'm like, dang, Beal has to be benched. It'll be ugly if Beal is stubborn and it's another Kyrie, KD, Steve Nash relationship with the coach where they don't respect Bud. You felt Beal was stubborn last year? I don't know if I got that vibe from Beal last year. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just don't know if I got that vibe from Beal last year. All right, so we went over a really good team. We're gonna come back to the Clippers. We'll decide where I want to put them. I do know I want to put. This is the main reason I'm like, let me move them somewhere around. We'll see if I decide to do that. There are things about the Clippers I like. We'll get to there in a second. Next up in a really good category, I want to talk about the New Orleans Pelicans. I think the Pelicans are going to be really good. I thought the Pelicans were going to be really good last year. The Pelicans are a really good team. I think the addition of adding DeJounte Murray makes them stay in this really good team category, even if Zion misses 30 games. That's what made me put them here. Because if Zion goes down with an injury and we look up and he only plays 50 games, they might be boom or bust, because they might lose some of the games without Zion. To me, if DeJounte Murray can get back to what he was in San Antonio before he got to Atlanta, and y'all know I was not a fan of DeJounte Murray going to Atlanta. I was never a fan of that move. I didn't think him and Trae Young would be able to coexist alongside each other well. Both of them were ball-dominant point guards in their situations that they were in. The Hawks were just like, hey, Trae can't play defense, DeJounte can, let's trade for him. Not the smartest idea, in my opinion. But I really do like him for the New Orleans Pelicans, because DeJounte Murray is a good point guard. He was a good point guard when he's with the Spurs. He was moving the ball. He moves the ball well. He plays good defense. He plays with pace. And he can attack the basket, pull up in that mid-range jumper. He can attack his spots and get to his spots. I would like to see... I'm curious to see what his catch and shoot game looks like. He did develop that a little bit playing alongside Trae Young. Still wasn't great. I don't think it's going to be great still with the Pelicans, but you can't leave him open. I'll say that. I like the pickup for them of DeJounte Murray going here. I still wish they had a better center. You're going to see a lot of Daniel Tice, and I still don't know how to pronounce their rookie's name, Yevis Missy, the rookie that they drafted. So you got a rookie and Daniel Tice as your bigs. I think you're going to see a lot of small ball with Zion at the 5, which excites me because, one, that means you could potentially play with a faster pace. Zion has looked good in his preseason game so far. We got to figure out what happens with Brandon Ingram. I think that's a big question for the New Orleans Pelicans. What happens with Brandon Ingram? Do they trade him? Do they re-sign him? there's not a world where you let him walk. So I'm curious to see what happens there with that. And I think the Brandon Ingram could be their solution to the center spot. We'll just have to see what their owners, their leadership comes up with. But I still like the rest of their team. Like I love Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, Jose Alvarado. They can be and with the addition of Dejounte Murray, this could be a very good defensive team. Like especially like guard wise, front court wise, wings, perimeter defensively. This can be a very good team. Dejounte Murray, Herb Jones, Jose Alvarado, Trey. This can be a very good team defensively. And like I said, biggest question: what happens to Bi this season? Unlimited says, I'm not calling Beal stubborn last year, but with his contract, could see him being similar to Melo where he wants to start, or he just wants to do whatever to win, just saying if he doesn't want to. I see. Okay, that's fair. I don't think, I personally don't see Beal being stubborn. Like, even with his contract, if there's a world, and I mean, mate, if there's a world where Bud asks him to come off the bench, they'll cross the bridge when they get there. That thought honestly hadn't really crossed my mind. I guess it is a possibility, but it hadn't really crossed my mind. They might ask Bradley Beal to come off the bench. Next up, we have in a really good team category, we got the Kings, the Sacramento Kings. Really good team. I think, so 2 years ago, the Kings have that amazing season where they're healthy all season. They end up being a top 4 seed, I want to say. And then they get bounced out early in the playoffs. Then last year they were a play-in team, if I'm not mistaken. Most of the other teams were just healthy, and they missed Malik Monk for like the last 10 or 11 games. He wasn't there for them in the playoffs. They definitely missed him in the playoffs. Malik Monk is a huge part of that team. While we're talking about Malik Monk is honestly one of my favorite players in the league to watch now, and I did not like him until he came on the Kings. Like, he's one of those players who, when a player finds his role on his team and you can really see him blossom, like, I love when a player can find the role and find his team. When he was on the Lakers, when he was with, who was he with right before the Lakers? He was 3 years. I want to say it was Charlotte. I might be mistaken. I might be misremembering, but I want to say it was Charlotte. I didn't hate him. Don't get me wrong. Like, I didn't dislike Malik Monk, but I was not like a Malik Monk fan. The role that they asked him to play in Sacramento and the role that he fills for Sacramento, being that sixth man, being an additional closer, like when the games are close and when it's down the stretch of those fourth quarters, he's in the game. He's running the offense. Like, he can be a secondary playmaker. He can be a guy who can knock down shots, get his own shot. I love the way he plays basketball. In addition to that, obviously they have the DeMar DeRozan addition. It gives him another shot creator, gives him another closer. The spacing that he brings ain't great. Like, we're not going to ignore the elephant in the room, but what he can do in the mid-range is very special. The type of player he is very specific and very unique. But the Kings' offense is so good, and I think the Kings have enough shooting around him that could make this work. Like, the Aaron Fox has developed his three-point shot. Keegan Murray, we know, is a great shooter. Malik Monk, like, they can run a lineup. They can run a Fox, Monk, Murray, DeRozan, Sabonis lineup. That's got some solid spacing. Like, that's not a bad lineup down at, like, closing out games down the stretch in the fourth quarter. You got a lot of guys who can create shots. You got a lot of guys who can knock down shots. I think the ball would move well in that lineup. I like him. I like him as an addition for the Sacramento Kings. The continued development of Keegan Murray's offense and defense. The continued development of Keegan Murray's defense. Last year they decided to have Keegan Murray and try to develop him as their point of attack defender. He was solid. Like, it started out a little rough and like throwing him in that, and you were asking a lot from him, being a guy who's like their go-to catch and shoot guy. Like, if you catch the ball, you got to let it fly, but also then sprint back and guard the best player on the other team. They were asking a lot from a guy in his sophomore season, but he's going into his third year now. I think he handled that sophomore year as best as he could, and now he knew going into this past offseason that was his role. My hope is he did the work and he's ready to embrace that role to an even bigger step going into this year. The Kings defense, believe it or not, was not terrible last year. Their offense wasn't the world breaker offense it was 2 years ago, but they had the 14th best defense in the league last year. Like, middle of the pack defense is solid. If they can sustain that with this roster, I like that for them. And then finally, the last note I have for the Kings is Sabonis is really good. Sabonis is really, really, really good. I'm not going to call him underrated because he was all NBA third team, but I don't see a lot of discourse, I'll say, about him when I'm like scrolling on Twitter or on TikTok. And he is really, really good. I want to say he led the league in rebounds last year. If not last year, definitely the year before. His defense, he's not necessarily a crazy interior presence, but he is a big body. And I always say a part of defense is securing that defensive rebound, and he does that with the best of them. Yeah, Charlotte didn't love Derrick Jones Jr. before he went to Dallas. Yeah, same. Derrick Jones Jr. is another great example. Didn't love him before he went to Dallas. Sometimes when a player goes to the right situation, you're like, oh wow, I get why you're an NBA player. Not as rude as that, but like, oh wow, you're really good. Like if you can get in a role that makes sense for you, you can thrive. If you're not in that role, you can look out of place, and then people questioning if you're good or not. Like that's how, to me, that's how those conversations get started when the guy's not in the proper situation. And then lastly, for the really good team category, the Memphis Grizzlies. Ja Morant is back. And I think within like the first, we already had a moment of that when he had that block in the preseason game, yesterday's preseason game or 2 days ago's preseason game. We've already had that moment. But in the first like 2 weeks of basketball, 2 weeks of the season, we're gonna have at least 2, 3 moments where it's like, yo, Ja is really good at basketball. Like his athleticism, the way he plays is so unique, and he does so much for the Memphis offensively because of how he plays. They can be continue to be really good. I love the addition of Zach Edey to fill Steven Adams' place. Steven Adams is now a Houston Rocket. He seemed like a solid lob threat in the preseason game. He did catch a lob, got off the floor surprisingly well. Y'all know me, I'm not a huge college guy, so I don't know much about Zach Edey going into the season. I know he's a big body. I know he should be a solid rim protector, at the very least, like a hands up guy to slow people down while you have Jaren Jackson Jr. flying around playing free safety. Like their interior defense should be solid. I'm curious, and I guess I'll say a little worried about what his pick and roll defense looks like with either hedging or switching or drop coverage, how they decide to do that. My theory is probably a lot of drop coverage, but we'll see. Desmond Bain, I'm expecting to continue to be good. 2 years ago when him and not last season, because was a lot was asked from him. He started out actually last season pretty good. I had him on fantasy to start the season, and he was hooping. But the season before, Ja's suspensions, and you only think he played 9 games last season, which is absolutely insane. Before that, the season before that, so 2 years ago now, he was great. And I'm looking to see him and Ja continue to build on that great backcourt development that they were building. Jaren Jackson Jr. continue to be great. Defensively, is that jump shot reliable? If that jump shot reliable, that changes a lot for this Memphis Grizzlies team. If not, he's still one of the best, what's the term I'm looking for, flexible defenders in the league. All right, boomer busts. I've decided the Clippers. The Clippers are in boomer bust for for the obvious reasons. Honestly, I wanted to put them in really good team. But I think, because even when I had like questions I had was, I think they're going to miss Paul George. How do you like make up for his production? Part of that's been from the media day press conferences, James Harden basically saying like, yo, this offense and this team is going to involve a lot of me, was his exact phrase. He was like, I don't know exactly what we're going to do. I just know it's going to involve a lot of me. He's looking confident in terms of what he's saying. I'm curious to see what it looks like and how it translates on the court. James Harden is controversial of a player he is in terms of whether or not you think his play style is successful in the playoffs. One thing you cannot deny is he's one of the best playmakers in the league. Like he still is a great playmaker. His vision is great. He's a great passer. As long as he's healthy and as long as his shot is falling, he's a really good player. Let's see if that happens throughout the entire season. The biggest question for the Clippers is whether or not Kawhi Leonard is healthy. Like this, as Unlimited said earlier, boomer bust last year in the Kawhi era. We're either seeing injured Kawhi or 2019 Kawhi, 2018 Harden, or 2023 Harden. And I think that's the story for this Clippers team. What version of Kawhi Leonard are we going to get? What version of James Harden are we going to get? And Kawhi Leonard even play 65 games. Like, is he going to play 65 games? Is he going to play the majority of the season? Or is he going to get injured in the playoffs again? Like, that's the biggest question for the Clippers. And it's crazy that I feel like we're now at the potentially the end of this Clippers Kawhi era. It's we're officially out of the Clippers Kawhi and Paul George era. Paul George is a Sixer now, but I still remember the day that the trade went down, all those picks for Paul George, Kawhi signing there, and I remember thinking like, oh, they just built something special, and I just don't feel like we never really for an extended period of time got to really see what that team could look like. Some positive things about them. Don't mind me. I'm trying to put a different game on the Knicks games at halftime. The positive things about the Clippers is, can Derrick Jones Jr. be what he was before the finals? And if so, that's a really good pickup. Guy who can defend, guy who can knock no open threes. Nicholas Batum is back. Can he do what he did for the Sixers last year? If so, that's a really good pickup. A connector piece. A guy who can smart, make the extra pass, knock down open jumper, plays good defense. Like, just the type of guy you want on the court to play alongside your superstars because he's going to make all the right plays. Mo Bamba. A backup big minutes for Mo Bamba. If he plays well, I like it. I love Zubac. I think he's a really, really good big. The Zubac Harden pick and roll is going to be even better than it was last year because they've had a whole season to work together. If James Harden can work on and create similar chemistry with Mo Bamba, who can potentially be a lob threat, I like that even better. End of the first quarter. Oh, Knicks Rockets. Rockets Thunder. Let's turn that one on. And then question mark on Kevin Porter Jr. What are you gonna give to us? Like, what are you gonna do for us? We'll see. Big question. Just big question mark on Kevin Porter Jr. What are you gonna do for us? How good are you gonna be? I think he could be a great spark plug off the bench in terms of like scoring punch, or he could be a guy who chucks up a decent amount of shots on some subpar efficiency. I'm hoping it's the former, not the latter, but we'll see. Lakers and Warriors in this tier. I'm a little lower on Sacramento, but they can be there. I just think the Lakers have a significantly higher ceiling than the Kings, but they haven't made any moves. And I think that's why. So the boomer bust, I didn't introduce boomer bust well. And this is why I didn't want to put the Clippers here initially. I guess I can put them here because if Kawhi and Harden are playing the way Kawhi and Harden can play, they can boom and be a really good Western Conference team. Like, they can be a really good Western Conference team. But when I say boom or bust, I truly mean like these teams, they can be and they can really surprise you. Like, there's a world where the Clippers are in the Western Conference Finals. Like, that's how good they could be in theory if they're healthy and playing how they're supposed to be. Like, that's how good Kawhi is when he's playing like Kawhi. We just haven't seen him do that since 2019. Next team in this tier is another team who, to me, Los Angeles Lakers, truly, and I made this boomer bust cat. I'm going to put them first because I made the boomer bust category initially when I started to think about the Lakers. This is going to be some glaze. Y'all might hate me for it, but it is what it is. When healthy and when playing how they're supposed to be playing, LeBron James and Anthony Davis are top 5 players at their position. Top 15 players in general at worst. You can make the argument that they're both top 10, but top 15 at worst. One of them's top 10, one of them's top 15. At worst, both top 15 because they both made all NBA teams, which is the league telling me at worst they top 15 players. AD was all NBA second team, defensive first team. Brown was all NBA third team. When healthy, them two should be able to carry a team pretty far. Now the question is, what else are they going to do with the rest of their roster to make that make sense? I'm hoping for continued great shooting from D'Angelo Russell. D'Angelo Russell, quiet as kept, was an excellent shooter last season. Really helped space the floor for them. I hope he continues to do more of that. There are some moments when it's crazy. I saw during the Olympics when Steph Curry was going on that heater and it was going crazy. I saw a couple of Lakers accounts was saying a lot about D'Lo, saying quiet as kept. D'Lo can go crazy like that too when he's in the zone. And I'm not going to say he can go crazy to the extent that Steph is going crazy in the Olympics, but I will say that I've seen D'Angelo Russell rattle off 4 threes in a row for the Lakers, and the Staples Center is rocking. Like, he has that ability. He is that type of shooter. We'll see if he can do that. I'm looking for solid shooting from Reeves. Can Rui Hachimura continue to space the floor? If so, that's a really good starting five. If so, that's a really good starting five. Curious to see what the rest of their bench unit can do. Gabe Vincent, can he be healthy this year and play for them? We'll see. And then the biggest question is JJ Redick's coaching. That's also part of the boom or bust. The vibes seem high. Players are talking him up. They're talking about the player movement, the ball movement, very similar things we saw from the Phoenix Suns. We saw in the first game for the Lakers, a lot of people moving off ball, a lot of ball movement. Is it sustainable over 82 games? Will the players continue to buy into it? Will they continue to do it over 82? We'll see. If they do, the Lakers can be really good. If not, Lakers could be a playing team again, like boom or bust. Next on this tier, we have, what do we got? This one I struggled with, but I didn't want to make another category. I got the Warriors here in boom or bust. Now, the Warriors boom, I'll be honest, I'm not as high on their potential boom. But I have to respect the fact that Steph Curry is a top 5 point guard in this league. And if we talking spicy, the way he played last year, like it's either him, Luka, or SGA as the top point guards in the league. And if you say it's him, based on the regular season, if you would have said it's him before playoffs started, I wouldn't have been mad at you. I don't know if I would have had that same pick, but I wouldn't have been mad at you. That's how good Steph was last year. Now, if he can do that again this year, coming off the Olympics, we saw what he did in the Olympics, but he was playing with a whole different caliber of teammates. But my biggest questions for the Warriors is, what do they look like without Klay Thompson? With Steph being more of the focus, what type of production do we see from Steph? Like, does he take more shots? Does he take over more? What does that look like? Are we going to get more offense from Wiggins and Kuminga? Can Andrew Wiggins look like the Andrew Wiggins that he was in 2022 when they won? Because, I mean, I know he's going through a lot of personal stuff, but the Andrew Wiggins we saw last year was not it. He just wasn't. So can we fix that? We'll see. What are we going to get from Jonathan Kuminga this year? Like, offensively, can he take that next step to fill in to be a bigger piece on the offensive side of the ball? Like, one of them two have to step up offensively to make up for what Klay was doing, or it's going to really be rough for the Warriors. I like Buddy Hield on this team. I like the Anthony Melton on this team. Solid 3-and-D guys. They will space the floor. They will shoot the ball if they in the catch and shoot situations. I think we're going to see the ball in Steph's hands a lot more, because I don't love the idea and the ball in a lot of these other guys' hands. Like, Pods is going to have the ball a decent amount, of course. We'll see what Draymond Green does on and off the court. I'm going to assume y'all saw at this point. It's bad to assume. If you didn't see, Draymond had a very interesting comment in response to, on Media Day, a reporter asked him, like, essentially, where's your head at? Like, do you feel like you've, quote unquote, learned from your mistakes? I'm paraphrasing. And he said, but he did say, people are worried about you, your teammates are worried about you, talking about his suspensions and essentially his mental state. Like, are you going to be locked in and we're going to play? Or we're going to have situations like we had last year. Honestly, situations like we had the last couple of years. And his response definitely surprised me, because he took it as like, I'm a black man who came from nothing. Like, what y'all worried about me for? Like, I done did so much for this team. I've accomplished so much. It's so many other things to be worried about. What y'all worried about me for? Not the response I was expecting to hear from Draymond, but also not surprised that that was the response that we got from Draymond. All right, next on the list, talented young teams that will compete. So these are teams that are young, that are talented, and that could really, really make some fans, some front offices, and some players upset, because they can knock out one of either these one really good team spots, one of these boom or bust team spots. Like, they could be a play-in team. These are teams fighting probably for that 10 to, I'll even say 6 seed. Like, the talent is there if the other teams aren't playing to where they should be. I'll say that. The talent is there, though. First one, I got the Houston Rockets. They were right there in this conversation in the same spot last year. I think it will be even better this year. I'm curious to see what's going to happen with Jalen Green. Like, I think they just really have to figure out what is his role going to be with this team moving forward. If I'm not mistaken, he's a restricted free agent at the end of this season. There's not been a ton of extension talks. Is he going to get traded, extended? Like, it's very, I'm curious to see what happens there. Solid. I think he has to find his role. Jalen Green is one of those players who, like Malik Monk, like Derrick Jones Jr., not to the same extent, because I think he had higher expectations when they drafted him. but it doesn't feel like he fits for this Rockets team just yet. He's a solid player, but it doesn't feel like he fits. He has to find a way to fit. Excited to see Reed Shepard. Y'all know, once again, not a college guy, but I've heard a lot of good things. Can Jabari Smith Jr. continue to take another step? I am a big fan of Jabari. I like the frame and the tools that he potentially has on both sides of the ball. He could be a really good player. He's young still, a little raw, but if he polishes his game, he could. It's weird. This is going to sound like a weird comp, but I almost see him like a more offensive oriented Evan Mobley potentially, like in terms of like how he plays and the rawness. Might be a bad comp, but that's where my brain went just now. Excited to see Alpi continue to be good for them. Quiet has kept their best player at the center position, slowly rising the ranks as one of the better centers in the league. The Rockets could be literally written, the Rockets could be the reason a team doesn't make the playoffs. And then people gonna be asking questions because they also, like I said, talented young team, but they have the vets. They have winning vets. Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, Jeff Green, Steven Adams, all four of those guys. I mean, Fred has been a part of a championship winning team, but and shoot, Jeff has too. Didn't Jeff win with the Nuggets? If I'm not mistaken, I might be mistaken, but I'm almost certain Jeff won with the Nuggets. They're all guys who have been a part, at the very least, of winning situations. Is my point. Guys who, for the most part, honestly, were never really the guy for their team. They've always been really good role players. And I think they're going to embrace their role on this team, be able to be good mentors for these young guys, be able to show them some ropes. Not necessarily show them some ropes, but like help create that culture. One of the things that was probably with the Rockets 2-3 years ago was the fact that there was no culture. The team was so young, and John Wall was like, yo, they just doing whatever they want down here. Those four vets ain't going to let that happen. I think those four vets have the ability to keep them in some close games because they're like, yo, we're here. We just got to lock in. I'm excited to see this Rockets team this year. Really excited to see this Rockets team. Similar conversation. San Antonio Spurs. What does Victor Wembanyama look like in year two? I've heard conversations where he can be like, catapult himself to top 15 in NBA conversations player wise. I've seen him catapult, and the conversation, people are already saying that he's likely to win Defensive Player of the Year this year. People are going as far as saying he might be an MVP conversation next year because of the stuff that he could potentially do. Literally, the sky is the limit for Victor Wembanyama. He literally can do anything. We have to see how it unfolds. We have to see what they do. Obviously, I like the addition of Chris Paul. Not only pick and roll with Victor, finding Victor. That's what everybody's saying. Like, oh, so many times where Victor Wembanyama standing underneath the basket, no one's giving him the ball. Chris Paul is going to make sure he gets that ball. But outside of one, yes, what Chris Paul is going to bring to them on the court should be solid. But two, I'm really looking forward to Chris Paul being a mentor figure for Devin Vassell and Stephon Castle. Devin Vassell had a really solid year last year. Stephon Castle's a rookie coming in this year. Once again, not a college guy, but I've heard some decent things about him. And from I saw like a 3-minute like highlight clip reel of his preseason game from like 2 days ago, I want to say. And he looked good. Like the way he moved on the court looked good. The pass he was making looked good. Once again, 3-minute highlight reel, not the biggest sample size, but I think he can be a good role model, mentor figure for them. And the addition of Harrison Barnes, I think, is really good. Another guy who's been in many winning situations. He's got his time with the Warriors. He was part of that Kings rebuild back to glory, if you will. A good vet, who's going to play for this team, going to be a good mentor, I potentially think, for Jeremy Shohan. Also, while we're talking about Shohan, honestly, he could be a good mentor figure for Keldon Johnson a little bit as well. But while we're talking about Shohan, him getting off the ball, not being asked to play point guard as much is going to be great for him. Let that man run the four. And I think he could still use a lot of his playmaking skill and ability, but let that man run the four. He don't need to be the primary ball handler for this team. That was crazy when they were trying that experiment. Talked about Keldon Johnson, and I like Zach Collins as a backup big. Honestly, I think what they did a little bit last year, I could see a lot of like 4 and 5 really big front court stuff with Zach Collins and Wemby on the floor at the same time together. And then last but not least, continuing out or figuring out their rebuild, we got the Utah Jazz. The Jazz's rebuild, not a bad team, just confusing to me. Honestly, I think it's confusing to a lot of people. The Jazz did not go in any direction that I think most people thought they would. And you know what I just realized? I did not go live on TikTok. I was supposed to go live on TikTok. It is what it is now. I mean, We're an hour in, and I only got a little bit left to do. But I was definitely supposed to go live on TikTok, so people know I'm live to come here. Whatever. Second week back. Second week back. The Jazz's rebuild, like I was saying, I think confuses me a little bit, and I think confuses a lot of people. I don't think there was a locked in NBA fan anywhere that wasn't expecting Lauri Markkanen to get traded last year. Like I think we were all expecting Lauri Markkanen to get traded last year. Didn't happen. He actually signed a 4-year extension in April, so now he's a free agent in 2030. Still not impossible for his contract to get moved. Like we've seen contracts get moved. It's just not the direction I expected. He's only 26. I'm just surprised he decided to stay. I mean, I get it. Get your bag, lock in that contract, and then go wherever. But I am surprised he hasn't made a push to try to go somewhere else. I'm not saying Lauri Markkanen is like the player who you're going to build a championship team around, or like a team on a borderline trade for him. It's like, oh, now we're contenders. I'm not going there yet with Lauri, but at the very least, he, to me, is like an all-star caliber guy, and could be a guy that helps a superstar get over that hump. And I'm just surprised he's staying here in Utah. But all that being said, I do still like, some of the pieces around there. Keontae George, young point guard, coming off a solid rookie season. Excited to see him to continue to develop. I think I'm one of the few believers in John Collins still. I know I'm crazy for it. He's the archetype of player that I like. Fast, athletic fours who, in theory, should be able to space the floor and play some defense. Because I think that's such a valuable archetype. Any four who slightly shows potential in that direction, going in that direction, that might be why I'm so high on Jabari. Any four that shows potential in going that direction, I am all in on, because I want that to happen for you. Colin Sexton, Walker Kessler, all solid pieces. Like, I'm surprised Colin Sexton stayed there as long as he did. I thought he was going to get moved out to another piece. Walker Kessler had was one of the better defensive bigs last season. Like, the Jazz have pieces if they want to do something crazy and blow it up. They just haven't gone in that direction. We'll see how many Jazz games I watch this year. I'm going to watch for Lauri, but we'll see how many Jazz games I watch this year. And the next on this list is the Portland Trailblazers, who, now that I'm really looking at it, I think they have the potential to be the worst team in the Western Conference for sure. I don't like this team. And I like pieces, don't get me wrong, but I don't like this team. I think Scoot has still a decent amount of development that he has to do. Not a great rookie year. Just overall, not a great rookie year from Scoot. I know it was asking a lot, throwing him and giving him the keys to a franchise. Like, that's a lot. And I hope he does develop more and have a great bounce back sophomore season. Don't get me wrong. So I'll leave it at that. I hope he has a great bounce back sophomore season. Anthony Simons continues to look great. Personally, I wish the keys would be more in Anthony's hands. I think that would have helped Scoot's development more if not as much of the keys was given to him right away. But hey, Chauncey's the coach, not me. I literally wrote Jeremy Grant ? Like, another team who I'm like, y'all kept him? Like, he signed a 6-year, 160 extension in 2023. He's got player options to 24. Like, he's in a contract for that long. Once again, I get it to an extent. Like, I mean, extend the guy. He's not bad. I would be surprised if he gets traded, because Jeremy Grant is the power forward archetype that's very similar to, like, great value Siakam. And I don't mean it in a disrespectful way, but they play similarly. But I think Siakam's just a better player. And if you have that play style and aren't as good as Siakam, I think your defense needs to be as good as, like, Bobby Portis. Like, that's the realm I think Jeremy Grant is seeing himself in. But at 6'1", 160, to me, he's got to be a better player than what I think of him now. And maybe that's on me, and I need to watch more Portland Trailblazers games. But that's where I'm at right now with Jeremy Grant. And then lastly, for the Trailblazers, DeAndre Ayton, be more aggressive. Get to the free throw line. I think DeAndre Ayton has a really good game, and I think he can be a really good player. There are times when he is a really good player, and I think he would be a lot more impactful if he got to the free throw line and scored. Get 6 free throws a game. Just get to the line 3 times in one game. Like, that can go a long way for him and for his development and making him a more appealing player for another team to trade for, because I think he has the potential to be one of the better bigs in the league. But after his last couple of seasons, I don't think we've seen him that way. So this is my tier list. Conference favorite, Western Conference tier list. Conference favorite, Oklahoma City Thunder. Right there, just not my favorite, the Denver Nuggets. Talent is there, I just have to see it. Dallas Mavericks and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Really good team. Phoenix Suns, New Orleans Pelicans, Sacramento Kings, Memphis Grizzlies. Boom or bust. Like, y'all really could be really good or y'all could be really bad. Los Angeles Lakers, Los Angeles Clippers, Golden State Warriors. Talented young team that will compete. And asterisk, likely to knock a good team out of the playoffs. Houston Rockets, San Antonio Spurs, and then figuring out their rebuild, Utah Jazz and the Portland Trailblazers. Nice. I'm actually going to save. I'll save that later. So, last thing I want to talk about before we get up out of here, the GM survey just came out. If you're not familiar, well, I won't say the GM survey just came out, but the GM survey did come out yesterday or 2 days ago. I want to say it came out on Monday. I haven't looked at it yet. I've seen a couple of things that were like quote unquote spoiled for me. I wasn't trying to see it, but I did. But for the most part, I'm sure there's things on here that I have not seen. So we will. I wanted to take a look at that, kind of do a reaction to it, because some of the stuff that I've seen, I already know I didn't like. So let's get into this. All right, now share. Bank. All right, 2024. Let me make this a little bigger. There we go. 2024 NBA.com's GM survey. 50 questions ahead of the new season. The annual survey is here. NBA general managers reacted to key topics before the 2024-25 season tips off. Anything specific in here we need to read? Boston Celtics are one of the most dominant champions in recent memory, ranking in the top two on both ends of the floor in the regular season, then only losing 3 playoff games on the way to franchise 18th title. Celtics don't have the popular opinion. GM responded to 50 different questions about the best teams, players, coaches, and offseason moves. General managers were not permitted to vote on their own team or personnel. Percentages are based on the pool of respondents to that particular questions rather than all 30 GMs. So that's telling me not all 30 GMs answered all 50 questions. So there might be some games where only 20 GMs vote. I wish they gave numbers instead of percentages. Like, give me numbers blank out of blank. That's what I would have wished. But we'll take percentages. All right, predictions. Which team will win the NBA Finals? Boston, the Thunder, and the Mavericks. Eastern Conference rankings, you got Boston and New York, and then Philly, Cleveland. Milwaukee down here does surprise me. Cleveland or Milwaukee surprises me. Someone giving Cleveland the first place vote is insane to me. Wow. Orlando and Indy getting some love. Not seeing Miami. Not seeing Miami is all I'm going to say to that. OKC, Western Conference rankings. OKC makes sense. Minnesota makes sense. Denver makes sense. Dallas being right there. Okay. 4. I can't be mad at that, though. Like, I think if I had to write this down, it would look something like this. Memphis being in there. Respect it. People remember Ja was out all season. You know what I mean? Desmond Bane missed the crucial amount too. You know, we got to remember this. Phoenix, New Orleans being there, I like. Golden State being there does surprise me a little bit, but I'm not mad at it. Who will win the 2024-2025 Kia MVP? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at 40%, Luka at 30%. And then you got Joel, Jokic, and Tatum tied for third. Also receiving votes, Giannis, Jaylen Brown, Anthony Edwards. Last year was Jokic with 43% going into the season. People are really high on SGA. I'm surprised. I will say I'm surprised Luka's not higher here. Like, if I'm being honest with you, I'm really surprised Luka's not higher. But hey, if you were starting a franchise today and could sign any NBA player in the world, who would it be? Wembanyama, 77%. Like, are we surprised? I'm not. If anything, I'm surprised these other guys got. Like, I'm surprised it's not 95%. The only people who can't vote for this is the Spurs. Which player forces opposing coaches to make the most adjustments? Luka Doncic, that makes sense. Steph Curry, Jokic, Giannis, Joel. So the best players. It makes sense. Steph Curry getting 40% last year surprises me. I mean, because maybe it's because of from where the distance he can shoot at, how much he moves off ball. So you always have to make sure you have somebody on him, sticking on him, going through screens. I get that. And then Luka, it's like you put a You put a small who can keep up with him, he's gonna bully him and go to the basket. You put a big who he can't bully, he's gonna go by him and use him with his speed and put him in a tough shot, like get a tough shot off on him. I see that, especially considering the finals run that we saw him go on. Which NBA player is most likely to have a breakout season in 24-25? This one, Jalen Williams, Evan Mobley, John Morant, Victor Wembanyama, Paolo Banchero, Cade Cunningham, Brandon Miller. Also receiving votes, LaMelo, Anthony Edwards. Okay, Derek Lively, I'll let rock. Tyrese Maxey, who just won MIP. No, did he win MIP? I might be mistaken. I want to say he did. Trey Murphy, okay. Keegan Murray, I'll give you that. Nimhard, okay. Şengün, okay. Cam Thomas, I'm in. So the bottom of this list makes sense. This top five is why I have issues with the Most Improved Player award in the NBA currently, and why I feel like we've lost what the most, or at least we've lost what traditionally, or at least what the Most Improved Player award meant the last 10 to 15 years that I was watching basketball. Before, like, these, ever since Ja won it, I feel like it's been downhill since then, and I was still shocked that Ja won it when he won it. There is no reason breakout season, like Jalen Williams had already. J-Dub is already nice. Like, we know who J-Dub is. He's already nice. Which I want him to turn into a 26 per game scorer, 27 per game scorer. Like, is that the breakout we talking about? I feel like last year was his breakout season. What? Evan Mobley, we know, was nice. Like, now, can he develop a jump shot? And if he develop a jump shot, go crazy, sure, I'll call that a breakout season for Evan Mobley. But we already know he's nice. John Morant is nice. He won an MIP. What do you mean breakout season? Wemby is, Paulo. Like, these guys are nice already. Even Brandon Miller, who I feel like a lot of people didn't watch because who was watching Charlotte, had a really good rookie campaign. He is already nice. This is why the Most Improved Player award is broken, because these are the GMs making the decisions, and I already know there's something else that, hell, it's the next thing. Never mind. It's already the next thing. Just keep in mind, these are the GMs making the decisions. So best point guard in the NBA. This is one of the things. This is the only thing I've seen already. Luka Doncic makes sense. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Steph Curry, Jalen Brunson. Not mad at that list at all. And like I said, Steph Curry, top 3 in his position. Who's the best shooting guard in the NBA? Okay, Anthony Edwards. Devin Booker, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But I thought he was a point guard. Steph Curry. Oh, wait. But he's in the point guard list. Luka Doncic. Oh, wait. In the point guard list. GMs. Y'all the people making these decisions. Also, I'm not mad at it. Anthony Edwards over Booker. I don't know if I'm there yet. Maybe they're predicting what the season is going to look like. I don't know if I'm there yet. Anthony Edwards over Booker. And you know whose name? Also receiving votes, Jaylen Brown, Derek White. Where is Donovan Mitchell? GMs. The fact that SGA, Steph, and Luka are here is crazy. They shouldn't be. Throw in Jaylen Brown in this conversation. Derek White, I love you, but no. And get Donovan Mitchell up in here. Anyway, moving on, because it gets worse. Best small forward in the NBA, Jason Tatum. So Luka Doncic plays 3 positions, apparently. Luka, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and then Jaylen Brown at 5. Last year was Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum, I'm not mad at being here. Honestly, I'd make the argument that Kevin Durant and LeBron James both play the 4. Should not be in the small forward conversation, but hey, once again, these are the guys and gals making the decisions for your teams. Best power forward in the NBA, Giannis, Kevin Durant. Makes sense. This is where he should be. Giannis at 77% also makes sense. Like, hands down, Giannis to me is the best power forward in the league, even with considering so many other people are paying power forward. And like I said, I haven't seen this whole list, but I just looked down. Why is Domantas Sabonis listed underneath the centers? I mean, underneath power forwards. Why is Domantas Sabonis here? Makes no sense to me. Anthony Davis even. Why is he here? He played center all last year. Also receiving votes, Draymond Green, Jason Tatum, and Wemby. Even. Hey, okay. Who's the best center in the NBA? Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, Victor Wembanyama. Wow. not mad at this. I'm not mad at this. If you ask most people who the best center in the league, Jokic is definitely going to be there. The fact that Wemby got a vote, because it's likely just like a vote at this 3%, a little surprising. A little surprising. Highest percentage of total votes and position questions. Highest percentage of total votes on position questions. So Jokic got the highest percentage of votes on his position, or like just in general. My IQ showing here. This I'm not getting this one. Off-season moves. Which team had the best overall moves this off-season? Well, I'm gonna let the positions go. Feel like I have some more another gripe. The only thing I'll say about this is the fact that guys like the fact that Devin Booker, Shea, and Luka are in 2 different positions. Luka's in 3 different positions. The fact that Sabonis and Anthony Davis and Wemby got votes for the power forward spot. LeBron and Kevin Durant being as small forwards when I think they should be in the power forward consideration, but maybe they put them there because they knew Giannis was going to win the power forward one. It's just surprising to me is all I'll say. It's surprising to me where these people are and what these GMs voted for. Off-season moves. Which team made the best overall moves this offseason? Oklahoma City Thunder, 76ers, Knicks. I like all of those picks. Also, Orlando Magic quiet as kept. I like what they did. I like what Sacramento did. Okay, Brooklyn. Last year it makes sense that it was these two, Milwaukee Bucks and the Celtics. Which one player acquisition will make the biggest impact? Paul George, Philadelphia, 60%. Makes sense. I think Mikal and Karl-Anthony Towns as a whole are really, really good additions, but like single player acquisitions, Paul George I think is going to have a bigger impact. Alex Caruso and Oklahoma City Thunder, shout out to him. That's a really good pickup as well. Most underrated player acquisitions, Alex Caruso, Oklahoma City Thunder. KCP for the Orlando Magic. Isaiah Hartenstein for OKC Thunder. All the ones we've been talking about between either this week or last week. Tyus Jones, Klay Thompson, Chris Paul. All very underrated pickups. Kyle Anderson was a good pickup for Golden State. I'm going to talk about that when we were talking about them. Dante, we talked about. Josh Giddey, we talked about. Caleb Martin, we talked about last week. I think it's a good pickup. I got thoughts on Philly at the end. Which team will be most improved? Memphis Grizzlies makes sense just because they're healthy. San Antonio Spurs. And 6 Philly, also because we'll be healthy. I like that. What was the most surprising move this offseason? Got to be Karl-Anthony Towns in New York. This one, I guess you can say it was surprising, like, as a whole. But I wasn't surprised once it happened because it was like, that's all everybody was talking about for like weeks. The writing was on the wall there. DeMar to Sacramento, that definitely did surprise me. Mikal to New York, kind of surprised me, but not really. Number 1 draft pick? I could see that. Also receiving votes, Denny Avagia to Portland, Tyus Jones to Phoenix, Caleb to DeJounte Murray. Oh, excuse me. Mercy. Clearly, I'm tired. It is 9:14. Rookies and international. Who and Rookie of the Year? Reed Shepard from Houston. A lot of people are talking about Reed Shepard. I'm excited. That's one of the other reasons I'm excited to see him. Zach Edey from Memphis. It's Stephon Castle for San Antonio. All 3 of those rookies I'm excited to see as well. Which rookie will be the best player in 5 years? Reed Shepard, Castle, Zachary Richard from Atlanta. I probably butchered his name. I apologize. I got to watch more Atlanta games to figure out how that's pronounced. Bob Carrington, Alex Sarr from Washington. Okay. Rookie was the biggest steal at where they were selected in the draft. Y'all know me. I'm not a draft guy. We're going to move past this part. Best international players. Got to be Jokic. Doesn't surprise me. Wemby being here once again. One of these GMs is loving Wemby. Who is the best international player not in the NBA? Okay. Nikola Mirotic's getting some love. Okay. Seti Osman. Bogdanovich. Oh, okay. I ain't mad at that. Who's the best defensive player in the NBA? Wemby with 40% of the votes. I'm not mad at it. Will say I'm surprised that the GMs went this way, but I am not mad at it. Bam, Rudy, Drew, all sharing 10%. Shout out to Rudy still getting some love. Bam getting some deserved love. Giannis. Hey, Herb Jones better make an all defensive team this year. That's all I got to say about that. Alex Caruso got some love. Jaden McDaniels got some love. Marcus Smart, of course, got some love. Okay. Best perimeter defender in the NBA, still Drew Holiday by a landslide. Alex Caruso's up there. Herb Jones. Herb Jones better make a all defensive team. Lou Dort. I love it. I love it. Best interior defender in the NBA. Vic, then Rudy. I like that this is close because it's specifically interior. If you ask me, Rudy Gobert is still the best interior defender in the NBA. Wemby is right there. Wemby just has the ability to do a whole lot more stuff too. Like he can play in better, good defensive space and stuff as well. Most versatile defender in the NBA is Giannis. Dang, this is actually pretty split. Giannis, OG, Wemby. Okay, Bam at 10%. I would have had. I think I would have Giannis. I'm not mad at. I would have did either Giannis or Bam. Probably gave the head like the nod to Bam. That was crazy. Jonathan Isaac, I like up in here. Herb Jones, Jaden McDaniels, I like here as well. Bam, I would give it to because Bam really can play. Like for a possession too. I'm not gonna put him on. I'm not gonna put him on a point guard. But if he gets switched into a point guard, honestly, I ain't worried. What's the best defensive team in the NBA? The Boston Celtics makes sense. Timberwolves and Thunder. I like that for the Thunder. Best coach in the NBA. Eric Spoelstra. Mark Daigneault for the Thunder. Okay. Steve Kerr still getting love. The discourse around Steve Kerr and his coaching ability is so interesting to me. If you ask most people on NBA Twitter, they're going to say Steve Kerr can't coach. But apparently if you ask the guys who make the decisions in the NBA, the GMs, 7% of them, or at least 7% of the people who voted for this, so at least one or two, think Steve Kerr is the best coach in the NBA. Which head coach is the best manager, motivator of people? And I think this is where Steve Kerr's coaching comes into play because a lot of people say maybe his X and O's aren't great, but he's a great manager and motivator of people. Joe Mazzulla is up there, Greg Popovich. Take this man off this list. But that's just me. Which head coach makes the best end game adjustments? Okay, Tyronn Lue. Yeah. I think this is running off a reputation still. I ain't gonna lie to you. When I watch the Clippers, I don't feel like I watch him make the Clippers specifically make a lot of end game adjustments when I watch the Clippers. But I know he's capable of it. That's just a personal feeling for me. Personally, I would have went with Eric Spoelstra. But I know Tyronn Lue has the capability, but personally, I would have went to Eric Spoelstra. I mean, you see the voting is close. Which head coach runs the best offense? Rick Carlisle, Indiana. Not mad at that. Joe Mazzulla, Boston. Chris Finch, Minnesota. Steve Kerr. Nick Nurse, Philly. I like that. Okay. Would not have said Eric Spoelstra, Miami. I get the idea. Would not have said it. RJ, what's good with you, my guy? Nick Nurse is pretty great. No, Nick Nurse is a great coach. Nick Nurse is definitely a great coach. Head coaches has the best defensive schemes. Spoelstra, Finch, Thibodeau, Mazzulla. Okay. Mark Daigneault getting some love in these lists. Jamal Mosley from Orlando makes sense. One of the best defenses in the league last year. The Orlando Magic had. Ime, Eric Spoelstra had 40% last year. New or relocated head coach will make the biggest impact for his team. Mike Budenholzer, 40%. 100% agree. I 100% agree. Shout out to JJ getting some love there. Biggest impact, good or bad, we'll see. But shout out to JJ getting some love. I think that says more about that they're saying a brand new head coach is going to have the biggest impact on this team. More about Darvin Ham than it says about JJ, but, whatever. Jordy Fernandez for Brooklyn, I'm excited to see too. Charles Lee for Charlotte. There are a lot of new coaches. There are coaches that got moved around, new situations going on this year. Dang, I forgot Kenny Atkinson is in Cleveland now. Okay. I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that. Best assistant coach, Sam Cassell, Boston. I don't disagree at all. It's clear that the voters didn't take into account how good a team is when you have 5 guys that all have defensive in Boston. Obviously, the defense will be great. While true, I mean, I'd still give it to for the defensive one? For Joe? Joe's still, I would say, still a good defensive coach because the schemes that they run are good defensively. Like when they do and don't switch, where like how they attack screens, like that type of stuff is still really, it's still a part of coaching. It helps a lot when you have one of the best point of attack defenders in Drew Holiday, like on the screens, and if Jalen and Jason get screened, they can switch for each other fairly easily. But I like, he is a good defensive coach. I give him that. Which active player makes the best head coach someday? Obviously, Chris Paul. Garrett Temple of Toronto. Mike Conley, Minnesota. TJ McConnell, Indiana. I like that pick. Fred VanVleet, Houston. Okay. I'm not mad at that. Okay. I don't see this one. I ain't going to lie to you. I ain't going to see that one. I ain't trying to hate, but I just don't see it. Drew Holiday, I can see being an assistant. I don't know if he would want to be a full-blown head coach. I can see him being a great assistant, though. Specifically because he'd be a great defensive coach. The miscellaneous, what team is the most fun to watch? Pacers, Thunder, Warriors, Nuggets, Celtics. I ain't gonna lie to you, I'm surprised the Warriors is on here. And I like watching the Nuggets. I'm also surprised the Nuggets is on here. Nuggets are an excellent basketball team. When I think of, I mean, that's probably because Jokic is amazing to watch. When I think of fun teams to watch, I think of teams that get up and down the floor. And Pacers, Thunder are high on that list for me. Also receiving votes: Mavericks, Lakers, Suns. Okay. Okay. Best home court advantage: the Denver Nuggets. Yo, I gotta go visit Denver because they really be talking about this Mile High City air thinner stuff, because I would not have guessed from watching the broadcast at home that the Denver Nuggets have the best home court advantage in the NBA. I honestly would have said OKC Thunder in terms of just crowd atmosphere. Boston Celtics makes sense. New York Knicks makes sense. Why is the Jazz on this list? Sacramento even makes sense. Like those three teams, Kings, Thunder, Celtics, Knicks, when I watch their games, I can feel the crowd energy come through the screen. I don't feel that way about the Nuggets, but it could be that mile high thing that everybody talks about. And then the Jazz, well, okay. Atmosphere is a thing. Had a school trip there and people were getting sick. And like I said, everyone tells me it's a thing. Everyone does tell me it's a thing. I ain't gonna hold you. Everyone says it. Shout out RJ for put me on. But like I said, I gotta visit Denver because it don't come across the TV. Is all I'm saying. It don't come across my TV. Which team had the league's most efficient offense this season? Boston. Makes sense. Most efficient offense this season? Even with KP out for a little bit, I would have picked the Pacers. I would have picked the Pacers. Also on that list is the Mavericks, the Thunder, Knicks, Suns. Okay. Which team's level of success is toughest to predict? Los Angeles Lakers makes sense. Boomer bust. We just talked about this. Houston Rockets, young team that could, go crazy. Pelicans make sense because the Pelicans are healthy. They're amazing. If they're not healthy, Suns, okay. Surprised the Mavericks are here. I can see Sixers being here because of our health issues. Last year, Philly won with 30%. Oh, God. Most promising young core: Thunder, Magic, Rockets, Spurs, Pistons. I like that. I'm trying to think if there's anybody I would add or swap out. Top of my head, no. I like that. Most athletic player in the league right now: Anthony Edwards, Giannis, Amin Thompson. Shout out to the GMs. John Morant, Asor Thompson. Also, shout out to the GMs. Which player is the best pure shooter? Steph Curry, 87%. Kevin Durant, Luke Kennard. Hey, GMs might know ball. The GMs might know ball. Which player is the fastest with the ball? De'Aaron Fox, Ja, Tyrese, Kyrie. Yeah, I guess he's still in this conversation. The current stage of Kyrie's game and how he plays with Dallas wouldn't make me think is one of the fastest guys with the ball, but I can see it. I can still see it. Shaedon Sharpe, best athlete in the league. I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all. Which player is the best at moving without the ball? Steph Curry. Makes sense. Best passer in the league. You got Luka, Jokic, Luka, Tyrese, Josh Giddey. Shout out to Josh Giddey for sneaking in here. I get it. It makes sense, but shout out to Josh Giddey for sneaking in here. Best leader. Steph Curry. Really? I don't know who I would have picked. Will say I'm surprised, though. I don't hate it. Like, I'm not mad at it. Clearly, he know how to lead. They won 4 chips. Like, I'm not saying he don't know how to lead at all. just surprised. Jalen Brunson, New York, Drew Holiday, LeBron, Jokic, Chris Paul. I don't hate it. It just surprised me. It just surprised me. That's all. Most versatile player in the league: Giannis, LeBron, KD, Tatum, Wemby, Miguel Bridges. Okay. Best IQ: Jokic. Wow. Jokic at 50%. Bron, Luca, Chris Paul, Tyrese Halliburton. Shout out to Tyrese. Player would you want taking another? Which player would you want taking a shot with the game on the line? Steph makes sense. KD makes sense. Luca makes sense. Jokic makes sense. Shout out to Dame, still getting some of that love from Dame time. Which rule change regarding play, schedule, draft lottery, playoff format, roster construction most needs to change? Roster construction, apron rules, trade math, too restrictive, or should be indexed to teams' market? Huh. That second apron hit them already. They worried about it. Schedule fewer back-to-backs. I can see that's a lot of teams with player with injuries. Game flow, reduce stoppages. Playoff format 1-16. Let the top seeds choose opponents. This is something they're talking about. This is something they've been talking about. Very interesting. It's something that Kevin O'Connor has been a big proponent for this and a big, big proponent for this over the last 2-3 years, saying let the top seeds choose their opponents to really be like, yo, because it would it would make really incentivize winning, just overall, just incentivize winning. You always get to the end of the season where it's like, oh, we don't mind losing this game because then we'll play this team because of the seeding. But this would incentivize winning because the top seeds can pick. So it's like, yo, you want to be high as possible so you can potentially pick. But also, I think it would make those first round matchups a little bit more competitive from a pride sense. Like if the number one seed says, yo, I'm picking, and you're like let's say the 6 seed, the 7 seed, you're not necessarily the 8 seed. We're like, yo, we want to face you in the first round because we really think we can beat you, and they didn't pick the 8 seed. Like that's got to ding your pride a little bit. I think it just would be more interesting. Free agency before the draft. So you draft based on the free agents that you have? Return to one-day draft. I'm not free agency before the draft. I don't hate. All right. For the most part, that's all we got for you guys today. Dang, we've gone for an hour and 30. That's what we aiming for though. Closer to the regular season, we'll probably get closer to some 2-hour streams, especially once the regular season is happening. And I really got more I want to talk about based on the games I'm watching. I've seen some preseason games. I really watched the Sixers. In terms of like really locked into their preseason games, a lot of it's like stuff like this. Preseason is on. I'm doing something else. Then I'll catch the highlights later. 30 seconds about my Sixers because some things I'm excited about. Tyrese Maxey looked absolutely insane. The threes that he was making and taking in our preseason game, specifically off the dribble step backs in that right corner, look fantastic. Jared McCain looks also fantastic in catch and shoot situations. I was told he's a great shooter. Did not realize he was the type of shooter that does not have to dip down and catch and shoot situations. He shot at least 2 threes I can think of off of driving kicks that were started by Caleb Martin, which we'll talk about him in a second, where he caught the ball here and just went straight up. Like a lot of guys, when they catch the ball high, they got to bring it down and load their jump shot. He just caught it and shot that joint. And it makes for a faster jump shot. And if it can be reliable, it makes it so it's harder for guys to close out on you. Speaking of Caleb Martin on his driving kicks, was surprised of how well Caleb Martin was attacking the painted area, kicking the ball out, finding shooters. Jared McCann, like I said, I got 2 threes off of that. Still concerned about still concerned about Caleb Martin's size starting at the 4. We'll see. I think the potential solution to that, and this is a stretch, but hear me out. Garshawn Yabusele, he could be the Sixers version of Aaron Gordon or Bobby Portis, which is something that I don't think we've ever had. The 4 spot for the Sixers for the last couple of years has always either been, really, Tobias Harris. And the type of player Tobias is isn't necessarily the type of player that I think the Sixers have needed in that position, meaning a guy who can play some defense, potentially knock down an open shot, a solid cutter, another rebounder, and be like a 30 work glue guy, which is what Aaron Gordon and Bobby Portis do for their respective teams. I'd say Aaron Gordon is probably the better shooter. Bobby Portis is probably the better defender. But you get what I'm saying here, and I'm not saying Yabusele is going to play to their level. Those guys are really, really talented for what they do for their teams. Aaron Gordon plays alongside Jokic. He's learned to be where on the court, like to cut when Jokic needs him to cut, stuff like that. He can knock down an open jumper. He went crazy the year they won the finals. It was like, oh, he can bully ball down low if you get a smaller player on him. Like Aaron Gordon can do a lot for that Nuggets team. Bobby Portis has the ability to also kind of knock down an open jumper from time to time. But the cool thing about Bobby Portis is he can play either with, like, he gives him a lot of versatility. He can play with Giannis and he can play with Giannis. He can play with Brook. He can play with Giannis and Brook. He can be the 5 if you want to go super small. I'm hoping Yabusele can be that for the Sixers. We'll see to what extent. I think he can play alongside Joel. I think he can run some super small ball 5 for some stints if we needed to and have him at the 5, really getting up and down the court. You go Paul George at the 4, him at the 5. What was that? Like Caleb Martin, Jared McCann, and Maxey. I don't know if I love that lineup now that I said it out loud, but if we needed to go small and move up and down the court quickly, I think that's a possibility. A lot of it's going to go on will Yabusele's 3-point line translate to the NBA. We'll see. The NBA 3 is deeper than the FIBA 3, so we'll see. RJ asked, last question before we get out of here, do I think it's Philly's year? I think Philly has probably the best chance they had since, what was that, the 2018-2019 season when we had Jimmy Butler, when Kawhi shot bounced in 5 times and dropped. I think this is the best team since that. So we'll see. I like the team a lot. It's all just going to come down to health. I like the team a lot. It's all going to come down to health. That's all we got for you guys today. I'm really excited to rewatch a lot of this playback. I think it was a lot cleaner, a lot clearer. I didn't see as many people saying it was lagging or anything like that, so I think we were good on the lag front. Appreciate you guys for pulling up. If you're part of Rewatch Gang, appreciate you as well. I will see you next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to catch the rest of, what time is it? I think the Clippers play tonight at 10:30. Somebody plays at 10:30 that I wanted to see, and then tomorrow we got the WNBA final start, so to watch that if you are a hoop head like me and just want to watch some basketball. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next week. I'm out. Peace.